All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the most audacious ideas in the entire history of science. We're talking about René Descartes' plan to literally tear down the universe as everyone knew it and then rebuild it completely from scratch, using nothing but the power of pure reason.
So, Descartes kicks the whole thing off with this simple, but honestly kind of terrifying question. What if everything your senses are telling you, the colors you see, the sounds you hear, the things you feel, what if it's all just wrong, a complete lie? What if the world isn't anything like it appears to be? And look, this wasn't just some clever thought experiment. For Descartes, this was step one, the absolute necessary first move to find any kind of real truth.
Now, to really get why he felt he had to do something so drastic, we have to understand the world he was living in. A world he saw as being built on a foundation of sand, on the, totally unreliable and often contradictory information from our senses.
And this slide, it just lays out the central problem for him perfectly. On one hand, you've got the world of the senses. It's messy, it's chaotic, it's full of illusions. But on the other hand, you have the world of reason, this clean, logical, perfect world of mathematics, where things are always true. For Descartes, these two worlds were basically at war, and he was absolutely convinced that the world of the senses just couldn't be trusted. Period. He basically argued that our senses aren't a clear window looking out onto reality. Not at all. They're more like a system of symbols. Think about it like this. The word fire doesn't look or feel anything like actual fire, right? It's just a symbol we've agreed on. Well, Descartes suggested that our sensation of red or our feeling of hot could be the exact same kind of thing. It's just a sign, a mental event that has absolutely no real resemblance to whatever is causing it out there in the physical world.
And this quote right here, it gets right to the heart of it. He's asking, why should we assume that the physical thing causing light has to be anything like our feeling of light? And with that one question, boom, he just completely severed the connection between the physical world and our mental experience of it. The senses were officially fired as reliable witnesses.
Okay, so if you can't trust your senses, what's left? What can you actually trust? For Descartes, the answer was crystal clear: reason. It was time to bring in the demolition crew, knock down the old building, and draw up a brand new, perfectly logical blueprint for the entire universe. Before you can build something new, you've got to clear the ground, right? For him, that meant getting rid of centuries of old physics. These ideas of mystical forms that give things their essence, or these inherent qualities like hotness or coldness. He saw all of that as just confusing junk based on faulty sense data. He wanted to start over with just one single, totally reliable building material. And that material was extension. This right here is the cornerstone of his entire physics. Just forget about color or smell or weight. For Descartes, the only thing that truly, really defines physical matter is that it takes up space. It has length, width, and depth. That's it. Full stop. If it's extended in space, it's matter. Everything else, that's just an illusion that our minds create. And he wasn't just winging it. He had this really clear four-step method. Step 1, doubt your senses. Step 2, only accept ideas that are as clear and distinct as a mathematical proof, like his idea of extension. Step 3, from those basic ideas, you logically deduce the fundamental laws of nature. And finally, step 4, using those laws, you build a complete mechanical model of the entire cosmos. It's just an unbelievably ambitious project, and he did it all from the comfort of his armchair. So what did this universe actually look like? The one built only from extension and pure logic? Well, the result was a stark, kind of beautiful, and maybe a little bit terrifying cosmic machine. So here are the basic specs for the Cartesian universe. First, there's only one type of stuff, matter, which is just extension. And because matter is space, there can be no such thing as empty space or a vacuum. The entire universe is completely full, packed with this stuff. So, what is change? It's nothing more than tiny particles of this matter moving around and literally bumping into each other. Every single thing that happens, from a planet orbiting the sun to a fire burning, is just a collision. This comparison really drives home just how radical his thinking was. The old view saw earth, water, air, and fire as these four totally different substances with their own special, almost mystical qualities. Descartes comes along and says, nope, they are all made of the exact same stuff. The only difference between them is the size, shape, and speed of their particles. Fire is just matter moving really, really fast. Earth is just matter moving really, really slow. It's a total game changer.
Now, any good machine needs an instruction manual, right? An operating system. And for Descartes' mechanical universe, those instructions were a set of simple, elegant, and totally unbreakable laws of nature.
He worked out 3 fundamental laws. First, you've got the law of inertia. Basically, an object will stay just as it is unless another object hits it. Second, the law of conservation of motion. The total amount of motion, or energy, in the universe is always constant. It just gets passed around from one particle to another. And third, the law of rectilinear motion. Any moving object will always try to move in a perfectly straight line unless something else bumps it off course.
But here's the kicker. Where did he get these laws? He didn't get them from doing experiments. As this quote shows, he got them from pure reason. He was so confident in his own logic that he basically said these laws have to be true. He couldn't even imagine a universe where they weren't.
And this leads to a pretty shocking conclusion. If the universe is a perfect machine that runs on fixed, eternal, unbreakable laws, well then there's no room for anyone to step in and mess with it. The machine just can't be tinkered with. So in the Cartesian universe, miracles are, by definition, impossible.
Which, of course, just begs the big question. It's one thing to say that these laws exist, but why should they be so constant? Why are they eternal? What is it that guarantees the law of inertia is still going to be working tomorrow morning? And the answer to that question brings us to the final and, honestly, the most fundamental piece of Descartes' entire system, the role of God.
So everything we've talked about so far, getting rid of the senses, focusing on reason, the clockwork universe, those eternal laws, all of it rests on one single massive foundation stone.
And here it is, the big reveal. The laws of nature are constant and unchanging because, for Descartes, God is constant and unchanging. See, God's act of creation isn't something that happened once and was over. It's a continuous act of holding the universe in existence. And because God is perfect and never changes, his actions never change. Therefore, the laws of nature, which are just the effect of his constant action, must also be unchanging and eternal.
Now, this required a very different idea of God than the one most people were used to. The traditional God of faith is often seen as passionate, someone who intervenes in the world with miracles. But Descartes' God of physics is different. This God is pure, unchanging logic. He doesn't break the rules. He is the very reason the rules exist and can never, ever be broken.
So, when you boil it all down, for Descartes, God was the ultimate guarantor of science itself. It's his perfect, logical, unchanging nature that makes the universe rational and predictable in the first place. Without this very specific idea of God, Descartes' whole mechanical universe just falls apart.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? Descartes built his revolutionary science on a metaphysical foundation, the perfect, unchanging nature of God. But centuries later, science largely operates without that foundation. So what does that mean for our own confidence in the eternal, unchanging laws of nature? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining this Explainer.